Think for a moment about the last time you truly needed something from someone else. Not wanted, not preferred, actually needed in that raw, vulnerable, undeniable way. Now think about whether you asked. There is a particular kind of person who moves through the world carrying invisible weight. They handle everything quietly, efficiently, and alone. From the outside, they look capable. From the inside, they are exhausted in ways they cannot fully explain. You might be one of them. And if you are, this is for you. You don't ask for directions when you are lost. You reroute. You don't ask for comfort when you are hurting. You wait until it passes. You don't ask for help when you are drowning. You learn to breathe underwater instead. Most people around you have never noticed the battle. That is not an accident. You made sure of it. This did not start with a conscious decision. Nobody sat you down and said, "From now on, you will handle everything alone." It happened slowly, in the quiet accumulation of small moments that taught you something deeply important about the world. Maybe you asked once and nothing came. Maybe you reached out and found empty hands where you expected to find warmth. Maybe the response you received carried shame or dismissal, or the particular cruelty of being made to feel like too much. Or maybe nobody did anything dramatic at all. Maybe they were simply absent, distracted, unavailable in that consistent, chronic way that teaches a child something permanent about their own place in the world. Without realizing it, your mind made a decision. Not a loud decision, not a dramatic one. A quiet, surgical, survival-level conclusion that settled into your nervous system like sediment into a riverbed. The conclusion was this: needing people is dangerous. Not dangerous the way fires are dangerous. Dangerous the way vulnerability is dangerous, when the person you showed it to didn't know how to hold it. Dangerous in the way that openness becomes a liability when the environment around you is unpredictable, critical, or cold. So you adapted. Because that is what humans do. We are not the strongest species on the planet. We are the most adaptive. And you adapted brilliantly. You became more self-sufficient. You figured things out on your own. You developed a high tolerance for discomfort and an even higher threshold for asking anyone to witness it. You become quieter, more aware, more careful. You learn to read the room before you enter it. You learn to sense other people's moods like weather patterns, adjusting yourself accordingly. You learn that your needs are most safely expressed when they do not inconvenience anyone else. You learn to shrink the evidence of your own struggle, to edit yourself before you speak, to answer, "I'm fine," with such practiced fluency that even you sometimes believe it. You become the person people lean on, the reliable one, the one who shows up for everyone and somehow never seems to need anything in return. People begin to define you this way. They say it like a compliment. You're so independent. You're so strong. You never fall apart. And you smile because what else do? You accept the identity because it is the one that kept you safe. You wear it like armor, never quite noticing that armor is heavy and that you have been carrying it for a very long time. But no one asks what it cost you to become this way. No one asks what you had to close off inside yourself to maintain that image. No one thinks to look behind the competence and ask what is actually living there in the quiet. And here is the part that cuts deepest. You stopped asking to. Not just stopped asking others. You stopped asking yourself. You stopped pausing long enough to notice that you were struggling. You learned to override the signal before it could rise into conscious awareness. Need appears, and before it can form into language, something faster moves to suppress it. This is not weakness. This is neurology. This is what happens when the brain learns, repeatedly and early, that expressing need produces pain rather than relief. Psychologists call this compulsive self-reliance. It is also sometimes described as a feature of dismissive avoidant attachment, a pattern formed in early development when caregiving was inconsistent, emotionally unavailable, or contingent on the child not being too much. The brain does not distinguish between a lesson learned in childhood and a truth about the world. It simply encodes the pattern and runs it forward. What was once a strategy for surviving a specific environment becomes the default operating system for every relationship, every vulnerability, every moment when need arises. You carry it into friendships, in a loft, into the way you sit alone at 2 a.m. with something heavy on your chest, and still do not reach for your phone. The nervous system of a compulsively self-reliant person is not calm. It only appears calm from the outside. Inside, there is a constant low-level vigilance, a scanning, a monitoring of every interaction for signs of the thing they learned to fear most, which is not failure, not rejection, not even loneliness. It is the specific pain of needing someone and finding them absent. That particular pain left a mark. And the nervous system, in its loyalty to your survival, decided it would do anything to make sure you never felt it again. So it built a system. A beautiful, exhausting, invisible system of preemptive self-sufficiency. Handle everything before it becomes a burden. Solve every problem before it requires disclosure. Maintain the image of wholeness so completely that no one ever gets close enough to see the cracks. This rewires things at a fundamental level. When you consistently override your own needs, the neural pathways associated with reaching out begin to weaken from disuse. The instinct to seek comfort, which is biologically hardwired into every human nervous system, begins to feel foreign, dangerous, almost embarrassing. Researchers in attachment science describe this as the deactivation of the attachment system. In plain language, it means your brain learned to turn off the part of you that reaches toward other people when you are in pain. This is known as a profound adaptation. It is also, quietly, one of the loneliest ways a person can exist. Because here is what deactivation actually looks like in a life. You go through difficult things and process them entirely inside your own mind. You carry grief without ceremony. You navigate fear without witness. You celebrate your wins briefly, quietly, then move on because pausing to share them feels somehow unnecessary or worse, like an imposition. You might find it easier to help others than to receive help yourself. When someone offers you support, something in you deflects it. You minimize. You say you are fine when you are not. You redirect the conversation back to them because being the helper is familiar and safe in a way that being helped is not. You might feel a flash of something uncomfortable when someone expresses care for you. Not gratitude, not immediately. Something more like suspicion, or discomfort, or the strange urge to prove you do not need it, precisely because some deep part of you is afraid to believe it is real. You might be surrounded by people who love you and still feel fundamentally alone. Not because they are not trying, but because you built a wall so seamlessly that even you forgot it was a wall. You thought it was just who you were. You might have mistaken your self-sufficiency for your identity. You might have told yourself a story that you prefer independence, that you do not need closeness, that relying on others is simply not your style. And that story is not a lie. It is a very sophisticated truth that is protecting a much older wound. You might feel a bone-deep fatigue that has nothing to do with sleep. The kind of tired that comes from years of being your own everything. Your own support system. Your own safety net. Your own parent in some fundamental emotional sense. And here is where it becomes painful to say out loud. The very strength that others admire in you is partly a symptom of something that was missing. The independence you were praised for was sometimes a response to the absence of dependability in the people who were supposed to be there. People called it maturity when you were young and handled things alone. But children are not supposed to handle things alone. Children are supposed to need things. They are supposed to ask. They are supposed to fall apart and be caught. What once protected you is now the thing keeping you from what you most deeply need. The armor that kept you safe in an unsafe environment is now standing between you and genuine intimacy. Between you and rest. Between you and the profound relief of finally, fully letting someone in. That is the painful truth that sits at the center of this pattern. Not that you are broken. Not that you are damaged beyond reach. But that the very strategies that kept you intact are now the strategies preventing you from being truly known. You became so good at surviving alone that you forgot surviving alone was never the goal. It was the adaptation. It was what you did because connection felt too risky. But you were not built for isolation. No human being is. Underneath the competence and the self-sufficiency and the practiced ease of handling everything without flinching, there is something much more tender. Something that did not stop needing. It only stopped asking. There is a younger version of you who wanted to be seen when they were struggling. Who wanted someone to notice without being asked. Who wanted the people in the room to recognize the weight being carried and say, with no performance required from you, I see it. You do not have to carry this alone. That younger version is still inside you. Still waiting. Still holding the original question that never got a satisfying answer. Why didn't anyone notice how hard I was working just to seem okay? That question is not a small one. It carries decades inside it. It carries every moment you held yourself together in a room full of people who assumed you were fine because you had trained them so well to assume it. It carries every night you sat with something heavy and talked yourself through it alone, because asking felt more frightening than enduring. It carries the specific grief of being capable. Because when you are capable, people stop checking on you. They redistribute their concern toward those who show their struggle more visibly. And you, who learn to make your struggle invisible, become the person nobody worries about. This is one of the quietest forms of loneliness available to a human being. To be surrounded by care and still feel unreachable. To be loved and still feel fundamentally unseen. Not because the people around you do not care, but because you built your walls with such skill that even love cannot always find the door. And here is what makes it more complicated. A part of you is proud of those walls. A part of you has deep loyalty to the version of yourself that survived by being self-contained. To dismantle the pattern feels, on some level, like a betrayal of the child who built it to stay safe. So healing cannot begin with tearing anything down. That approach will not work here because every time you try to force vulnerability before the nervous system feels safe, it recoils. It reads openness as threat. It prepares for the pain it remembers. Healing doesn't start with fixing. It starts with understanding. It starts with sitting with the recognition that what you developed was not a character flaw. It was not emotional immaturity dressed up as strength. It was a profoundly intelligent response to a specific set of conditions. Your nervous system did exactly what nervous systems are designed to do. It learned the environment and it adapted. The problem is not that you adapted. The problem is that the adaptation outlived the environment that required it. You are no longer in that room. You are no longer dependent on the people who were unavailable or unpredictable or unable to meet you. You have more agency now. You have more choice. But the nervous system does not automatically update when the circumstances change. It keeps running the old software. It keeps making the old calculation. It keeps deciding, in the fraction of a second before conscious thought arrives, that needing people is dangerous, that asking is weakness, that the safest version of you is the one that requires nothing. This is not a moral failing. This is neuroscience. And neuroscience, unlike character, can be slowly and gently rewired. The rewiring does not happen through grand gestures of forced vulnerability. It does not happen by suddenly oversharing with people who have not earned it or by dismantling your boundaries all at once in the name of healing. It happens in the smallest moments. It happens the first time you say, "Actually, I could use some help with this," and you let the discomfort of that sentence exist without immediately walking it back. It happens when someone offers care and instead of deflecting, you pause. You breathe. You let it land. It happens in the quiet decision to stop editing yourself before you speak. To let your actual experience be present in the room, even in a small way, even for a moment. There is no shame in where you are. That cannot be said with enough weight or enough sincerity. The pattern you developed was not chosen. Nobody selects compulsive self-reliance from a menu of personality options. It was shaped by experience, by absence, by the particular architecture of your earliest emotional environment. To carry shame about an adaptation you did not consciously create is to punish yourself for surviving. And you have already spent enough energy on things that deserve to be released. What you did made sense. Given what you knew, given what you experienced, given the emotional resources available to you at the time, you did exactly what a person does when they are trying to stay intact in conditions that were not designed to hold them. You held yourself. Because no one else was doing it consistently enough. And there is something genuinely remarkable about that. There is also something genuinely heartbreaking about it. Both of those things are true at the same time. Now consider sitting with this question, not as an intellectual exercise but as something you actually feel your way through slowly. What did I need that I never received? Not what did you want? Not what would have been nice? What did you actually need, in that foundational way, that did not consistently arrive? Was it someone who noticed without being told? Was it permission to fall apart without consequence? Was it the experience of being held by someone whose presence was reliable, whose care did not have conditions attached? Sit with that question without rushing to answer it. The answer is not the point. The sitting is the point. Because most people who never ask for help have also never fully allowed themselves to grieve what the not asking cost them. Carl Jung wrote that what you resist persists, and what you accept transforms. He understood that the psyche does not heal by pretending the wound does not exist. It heals by bringing the wound into the light, slowly, with enough compassion to make the light feel safe. Jung also spoke of the shadow, the parts of ourselves we have hidden away because they were too raw, too needy, too much for the environments we inhabited. The shadow does not disappear when we stop looking at it. It shapes our behavior from below the surface, driving the patterns we cannot quite explain, pulling us toward the familiar ache of isolation even when connection is available. The part of you that needs is not your weakness. It is your shadow. And it is asking quietly to be integrated, to be allowed back into the full picture of who you are. Integration does not mean becoming someone who falls apart publicly or who suddenly narrates every inner experience to anyone willing to listen. That is not the goal, and it is not the healing. Integration means allowing the full truth of your inner life to exist without immediately suppressing it. It means developing the capacity to notice when you are struggling and choosing, sometimes, to let that noticing go somewhere other than deeper inside yourself. It means building what psychologists call earned security. The understanding, developed slowly through repeated small experiences, that certain people in your life can be trusted with the real version of you. Not all people. Not strangers. Not those who have not demonstrated the capacity to hold what you offer. But some people. Carefully chosen. Slowly trusted. Because here is something important that the self-reliant mind tends to overlook in its efficiency. Vulnerability is not a broadcast. It is not all or nothing. It does not require you to hand every fragile thing to every person you encounter. It is a practice of selective, intentional openness with people who have earned the right to witness you. And that practice, done in small increments, begins to teach the nervous system something it desperately needs to learn. That reaching out can produce warmth instead of pain. Each time that happens, the old equation shifts slightly. The brain updates its prediction. The nervous system, which is always learning, begins to register a new possibility. That needing someone does not have to end in disappointment. That asking does not have to end in shame. This is slow work. It is not linear. There will be moments when you reach out and it does not go well, and the old pattern will rise with immediate force, saying, "You see, this is why we do not do this." And you will have to be patient with yourself in those moments without letting them become the final evidence. One difficult experience does not confirm the original wound. It is data, not destiny. You did not have a choice then. The environment shaped you before you had the cognitive capacity to evaluate it, before you had the language to name what was missing, before you understood that what you were adapting to was not simply the way the world worked but the specific limitations of specific people in a specific time. You were a child moving through conditions that required more of you than they should have. And you rose to meet those conditions with everything you had. That required a kind of strength that most people will never fully understand because most people never had to develop it. But now you do have a choice. Not a simple one. Not one that arrives without resistance or fear or the deeply familiar pull of old patterns. But a genuine choice, available to you in each moment when need arises and the old reflex moves to suppress it. You can pause. You can breathe. You can ask yourself, slowly and without judgment, what would it mean to let someone in right now, even slightly, even imperfectly? You can choose, one small moment at a time, to practice being a person who is allowed to need things. Who is allowed to say this is hard without immediately following it with "but I am handling it." Who is allowed to receive care without treating it like a debt that must be repaid immediately. You are allowed to be in process. You are allowed to still be figuring this out. You are allowed to be someone who is genuinely strong and genuinely struggling at the same time, because those two things were never actually opposites. They only felt like opposites because somewhere along the way you learned that showing the struggle canceled out the strength. It does not. Strength that has never been tested by visible vulnerability is not the deepest kind of strength. The deepest kind is what emerges when you allow yourself to be seen in your difficulty and you survive that exposure. When you discover that being known does not destroy you. That need, expressed and met, feels like relief rather than defeat. That discovery is available to you. It is not too late. The nervous system retains its capacity for new learning across an entire lifetime. The patterns that were built can be gently, gradually updated. Not erased because your history is part of you and it shaped things worth keeping. But updated, expanded, made more flexible, more spacious, more capable of allowing what you actually need to exist alongside what you have already become. You never had someone who made needing them feel completely safe. But you still have time to become someone who knows what safety feels like. You never had the experience of falling apart and being caught without consequence. But you still have the capacity to build that experience slowly with people who are worthy of the trust. You never heard the words you needed most when you were young and holding too much. But you can begin to say them to yourself now, with the same consistency and patience you would offer anyone else you loved deeply. You are not too self-sufficient to heal. You are not too far into the pattern to find your way back to something softer. You are not the armor. You are what the armor was built to protect. And what is underneath, the part that still feels, still needs, still reaches even when the reaching has been suppressed for years, that part is not damaged. It is waiting. It is patient in the way that only something very deep and very real can be patient. It has been waiting for you to come back for it. Go back for it.